The title of the talk today is Tradition in a Tech-Driven World. Tradition in a Tech-Driven World. And I want to start off by talking about a movie that I believe tradition may one day uphold as one of the great classics of the 20th century. And that movie is Jurassic Park. All right? Jurassic Park, it's true. Now, I'm not talking about the new 2015 Chris Pratt Jurassic World. I'm talking about the old school, real deal 1993 movie. Who has seen the old school, real deal Jurassic Park? Show of hands. Okay, that's amazing. I sat on a bench out there. I woke up on the plane and I had this horrible thought that maybe Hungarians hate Jurassic Park and they've never seen it and it's just not cool to watch it. And then my talk is not going to make any sense at all. So I was asking students, since I was like, do you watch Jurassic Park? And they're like, oh yeah, we all watch Jurassic Park. So I felt very relieved to hear that. So there's this great scene in the movie. So John Hammond is the founder of Jurassic Park, this island that they're going to turn into a theme park. And you know this story. They've genetically engineered dinosaurs using old mosquitoes that were covered in sap and then fossilized and extracting those to create dinosaurs. Well, John Hammond wants to get an independent safety certificate so he can then start inviting people to the park and charging $10,000 a day to go see a real life-breathing T-Rex. Now, would y'all want to do that? I think I would pay whatever. To see an actual T-Rex would be so cool. So I get very excited about that. I just put that on the credit card and be like, I'm going. I got to see a T-Rex. That's amazing. But the scientist, Dr. Ian Hammond, he's not buying it. He's not buying that this is a good idea. So he keeps pushing back on the founder of this park. And he says to him, and finally the founder gets upset. He gets a little defensive. And he says, don't you know our scientists have done things that no one in the world has ever done before? And to that, Dr. Ian Malcolm responds and he says, your scientists were so preoccupied with if they could do it, they never stopped to think if they should do it. That's my favorite line in the movie. I think it's worth repeating. Again, Dr. Ian Malcolm says, your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could do it, they never stopped to think if they should do it. Now, when I asked if you'd seen Jurassic Park, not every hand went up. Fair warning, I'm going to go ahead and totally ruin it for you if you haven't seen it, because it came out 31 years ago. And if you haven't seen it by now, you're probably not going to see it. So spoiler alert, it's coming. But surprise, surprise, the dinosaurs get out of the pen and they eat the people, right? So it's one of the other great lessons from Jurassic Park. You can keep children in a playpen or puppies in a puppy pen, but you can't put dinosaurs in a dinosaur pen because they will get very upset and they will get out and they will wreak all kinds of havoc, right? I think there's a beautiful metaphor analogy here for us to think about, right? Technology creating something that then consumes and devours the people that created it, right? The thing we've all got in our pocket, right? The iPhone. And I'm amazed, by the way, just sitting in talks and watching, you guys are doing so much better than Americans. I mean, we're like zombies over in America. We're just all doing this all the time. You're all just focused. So thank you. That's amazing. I was like, do I ask people to put their phones away? But everybody's already done that. So that's really, really incredible. But look, technology has profoundly changed who we are in ways that we're not always thoughtful about. And I'm not a Luddite. I'm not anti-tech. I run a tech company in the US, a company that's in many ways a tech company. But we need to be thoughtful about what it changes and how it changes those things. And I would suggest to you that there are three. It changes our relationship to God, it changes our relationship to nature, and it changes our relationship to one another as well. So first, how does it change our relationship to God, right? Some of you will know this. First one to shout it out, kudos. What is the inscription to Apollo at the ancient temple of Delphi? Who knows this? To know thyself, right? And in some ways, this maxim is at the very foundation of Western philosophy, even Western civilization. But this isn't an easy thing to do, to know yourself, right? That takes contemplation. It takes an interior life. It takes solitude and prayer and discipline and focus, right? And how do you do that when we've got notifications going off on our phone, sometimes 10 times a minute, right? How do we do that when we're kind of going from one meme to the next. This technology is designed to be as addictive and as powerful as possible, so we keep scrolling and those ad dollars just keep coming in, right? And so when we're living in that as slaves to our devices, it changes our relationship to God. It also changes our relationship to nature. Think about just one example of this. Let's talk about just transit for a minute, right? For most of human history, folks were getting around on foot, on horses, maybe horse and carriage, and they were deeply immersed in the natural world when they did that. When they had their usual course of travel, maybe to church on Sunday or to work, and they're crossing the same stream. They're watching the levels rise and fall with the rain coming and going or the snow melting, right? They're watching the leaves bud in the spring and turn colors in the fall. They're doing the same path day in and day out. They're inhaling the changing smells of the forest. They know the sound of the rocks flowing over the water. Their senses were deeply in touch with the natural world, right? But the world that we have always inhabited, planes, trains, cars, when you're going 200 miles in a train or 600 in a plane, you're not smelling the forest, you're not smelling the flowers, right? It's all too fast, right? So technology has deeply, deeply impacted our relationship with the natural world. I've started doing something that my wife thinks is very bizarre to like help reconnect this. I love hiking, but I actually started hiking barefoot. It's a very weird habit, but I just do it and people are like, that guy's weird, he has no shoes on. But it's this way of kind of reestablishing some kind of contact with the natural world. You should see some faces right now. They're like, this guy is, I thought he was weird, he's very weird, right? All right, the other one is how it's changed our relationship with one another. Technology's changed our relationship with one another, right? Here's one example, letter writing, right? Raise your hand if you write a letter at least once a month, handwritten letter. Put your hands up. We've got like 5 of you, maybe more. Okay, that's amazing. Thank you for keeping it alive. I love handwritten letters. And something very different is happening when you're writing a letter by hand than when you're snapping or texting or whatever else you're doing, right? My parents went on 3 dates, 3 before my dad got sent off to the Vietnam War in 1969. 3 dates, and then an entire shoebox of letters that they have to this day. And I have these great images in my mind of my dad in the rain in Vietnam with the tent over his head, and he's thinking about that next line he's going to write. And if you're trying to woo a girl through handwritten letters, you don't write chicken scratch. You don't slop through that letter. The handwriting itself is an expression of love, right? We've lost that. Technology changes our relationship to one another. How else does it change our relationship to one another? And again, I'm so amazed with Hungarians because you guys are, I don't know how you do it, but you're all like super focused. In America, we're mostly zombies. Like most of us are just doing this like most of the time. And so, you know, I've got 6 kids at home. It's a lot of kids. I love having kids. They're great. My 2 daughters, you know, it's like the daily conversation. You know, I'm like, I can't wait to pick her up from school. And then she says hello, and then she's doing this, you know, after a minute. And I'm like, hello, I'm right here. Like, and then I grab it and I do the dad thing and I like chuck it in the back seat and it cracks and we deal with that later. But, you know, technology has changed our relationship with one another as well. So what are we going to do about it? You know, there has never been, you know, probably a time that we have needed higher ed to be higher ed, to do what higher ed is supposed to do than we do right now, right? Colleges and universities, when they're working well, they draw us out of the here and now into the timeless, into the eternally true, good, and beautiful. And so we can contemplate those things and be shaped by them. I don't know a whole lot about the Hungarian university system, but in America, most of the universities have been compromised. Most of them have abandoned the pursuit of truth as the goal of the university, right? The pursuing of truth, the preserving and passing down of truth from one generation to the next. Universities were born out of medieval Christendom for that purpose. They've abandoned that purpose, in America at least, for basically training up kind of new political activists, right? They've embraced a very impoverished vision for education precisely at the time we've never needed universities and colleges to do their job more. Now, there are a lot of great colleges and universities in the U.S. still, but I think the majority have gone in the wrong direction, right? So what are we doing about it? And there's a group of us in the United States, and there are two things we're doing in particular. And the first thing we've done is we've created a new college entrance exam, right? Trying to change the main standard. The second thing we've done is we're creating new colleges and universities. I'll be talking about one of those in just a minute. But first, the college entrance exam, the classic learning test. This is my life's work. And you may think, man, what a boring thing. Standardized testing, who cares? Well, in the US, these tests are very powerful, right? They're going to determine if you get into college, if you get a scholarship or not. And they're so powerful, they end up shaping and driving the curriculum. And the two main tests, the SAT and ACT, have gone kind of full ideological, and they basically censor anything that's from Western Civ or from the Christian or Catholic intellectual tradition. And by censoring those traditions, they end up reshaping curriculum with it. So we've created an alternative college entrance exam where students are reading passages from Aristotle's Politics, maybe a passage from Dante, maybe a passage from Jane Austen or Flannery O'Connor, instead of the nonsense they're putting on the SAT and the ACT. The other thing we've done is we're creating new colleges and universities. I think in just a couple of minutes, we may have an image of the college university I'm excited to talk to you about today, and that is Catholic Tech. Look at this amazing, amazing image here. Catholic Tech is an American university, but its campus is located in Castel Gandolfo, just about 10 miles south of Rome. One of the most beautiful places, not as beautiful as Budapest, but one of the most beautiful places on the earth that you could ever hope to go to. Their campus actually borders the Vatican Observatory. And the purpose of Catholic Tech, or I'm one of the founding trustees there, is to be a solution. And I think Catholic Tech is maybe the most exciting development in higher ed in the past half century, right? This is an exact solution to what I believe is one of the greatest crises facing the modern world. And that crisis is amazing, amazing technology, often in the hands of people that have no moral or ethical foundation sometimes at all, right? It's a wonderful and beautiful story of the founding of Catholic Tech. This was an MIT postdoc student, Alexis Haughey, who was sad as a passionate Catholic about this rupture, about this disconnect between emerging technology and traditional anthropology, traditional morality, traditional ethics. And her husband came up with a bold idea. Instead of just being sad about it, why don't we start an alternative to MIT, an alternative to Harvard, an alternative to Stanford? We launched the university this fall. Every one of our founding faculty members formerly taught at either Stanford, Harvard, or MIT. And so I want to encourage you, if we have any high school students here, to check this out. Check Catholic Tech out as an option. I believe this is going to be a university where students are coming from all over the world to explore it and to be at the cutting edge of technology, but also to get this deep immersion into the Western canon, into a Catholic understanding of justice and the human person as well. I want to leave you kind of with this challenge. I think that we're seeing this happen already, where we're essentially going to be going into two giant classes in the world. And I think it's going to be the class that is controlled, enslaved by technology, right? It doesn't feel like that because it's so fun, right? When you're scrolling for countless hours, Instagram videos or reels or whatever, it doesn't feel like you're being a slave. But when it dictates your time and changes your relationship to God, nature, and to people, it has absolutely come to a point of controlling you. I think the other class, so to speak, is going to be those who are controlling tech rather than being enslaved by it. So I would challenge you with that. Are you going to be one of the masters of tech, or are you going to be one of the ones who is mastered by tech as you go forth from here? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Germany. Now, this is the time where the hot seat follows us.
All right, let's do it.
You're in the hot seat.
Okay.
As they say here, Tashik.
All right.
Okay. So, quite a challenge you've got ahead. You talked about creating alternatives to places like Harvard, Stanford, MIT. Can I ask the first question? I mean, those universities, those learning institutions have been built up over centuries. What's your timeline?
We hope to do it much shorter. I mean, Harvard has been around since 1636. And in many ways, the Harvard brand exists on kind of the borrowed capital for what it was for generations. But it's really no longer that. Harvard University scored dead last with a negative 0 score. They actually rounded it up to 0 by FIRE, which is kind of the main free speech apparatus in the United States. They said Harvard came in dead last for free speech of any university. I think students and parents are finally waking up to this. And I think they're waking up because employers are waking up. As an employer, if I see an applicant from Harvard, I'm not as excited as if I see an applicant from a place like Hillsdale College, where I know they're getting a good moral formation as well as a good academic formation.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, guys and gals, the ball is in your court now. Let's take the first question from the lady sitting at the end up there. Then, sir, we'll come to you. But keep your hands up there so I know where you're interested. Thank you.
So my question is that you mentioned a lot of colleges in the US, and have you looked at other countries and their higher education system?
We're partnered with the University of Navarra in Pamplona, Spain, which actually just comes in third, just behind Oxford and Cambridge for best teaching universities in Europe. So we've got a great partnership there. And actually the country with the number two country for CLT test takers is actually in Egypt, where we have about 5 universities we're partnered with. I don't think I can pronounce any of them correctly at the moment, but there's a love for what used to be the English education system that in many ways has been lost over the past half century.
Thank you. And sir, I think you were here.
I'm really curious because I'm somehow involved in the economic Francesco movement of the economic initiative of Pope Francis for the youth. Is this tech university in any way created with that initiative?
No connection there at all. I mean, it's right there. I think before Pope Francis, most popes would actually spend a lot of their summer at the residence in Castel Gandolfo. Pope Francis has not done that, but it is a really, really beautiful area. And again, the campus that they purchased for Catholic Tech, it borders the Vatican Observatory. I hope that picture came in clearly to get an idea for what this looks like, but I don't know of any connection there.
Okay, thank you. Lady here, thank you.
I love the idea of literature and history being a part of entrance exams. However, I'm a non-religious person, so how would I find this middle ground at a university like yours, but with an interest in literature and history as a part of my entrance?
Yeah, I love that question so much. And so, we're a test where you may see something, from Dante or maybe even something from Augustine's City of God. But certainly, we wouldn't expect students to need to agree with any of our authors in order to be able to understand those authors. And I think we've gotten to a place in the United States where we've done such a radical separation of kind of church and state that most students, if they go to Washington, D.C., and they try to understand Lincoln and say his second inaugural address, it's full of biblical references, right? And they don't know what he's talking about. They can't name a single book in the Bible. There is absolutely no content knowledge of the Bible itself. So I think there are different questions, right? In that any educated person should have a decent knowledge of the Old Testament, the New Testament, and I think that's a separate question from belief itself. One other comment, though, with this, the SAT and ACT, both of these entrance exams, they have what are called sensitivity committees. And the idea with the sensitivity committee is that a student shouldn't have to read any passage that they find upsetting because it can trigger them, and then they won't get an accurate score. And so part of this idea, I think, is pretty noble, right? If let's say that a student had an uncle commit suicide or something, we wouldn't want to have a passage about that, a suicide or something on a test. That could be deeply triggering and upsetting and distracting, right? But they've gone totally overboard where now they have these whole rooms of sensitivity committee where they say any passage is upsetting to somebody. And so what we've ended up with in the US is on the very most important test a student ever takes, you get the most meaningless passages that no one would ever read, right? So we've taken the exact opposite approach, and we've said, look, if the passage was never controversial, it's probably not worthy of a student's time and attention, right? And so we don't just have Augustine or Dante, we've got Charles Darwin, we've actually got Karl Marx featured prominently on the CLT as well. And it's actually a mark of an educated person to be able to read an idea that you don't agree with, to contemplate it, and to not necessarily have to have an emotional meltdown, as sometimes students do in the United States. Thanks.
Next question.
So my question is that you have mentioned how ideologically impacted the U.S. higher ed is, and how can you ensure that the censorship or like the censorship of these ideological narratives are happening or will happen in your university when you take the professors from the exact universities you are against in a manner?
Yeah, it's a great question. So why would we have founding faculty that are from MIT and Harvard and Stanford if we're saying MIT and Harvard and Stanford are maybe part of the problem? And so Catholic Tech, there's only about 17 Catholic colleges and universities in America that are colleges that basically they have the professors take an oath of fidelity to Catholic teaching, all of it. And Catholic Tech is one of those. Every professor is doing that. The majority of Catholic universities in America, even a place like Georgetown, very elite, very selective, but not very Catholic, right? And the vision for Catholic Tech is to have a university that is elite in terms of academic credentials, the academic credentials of the faculty, but also is uncompromisingly Catholic. And by taking that oath of loyalty to the teachings of the church, I think that's how they're going to make sure that they stay the course and don't waver. That's a great question.
Sorry,
Okay.
can I add a remark?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So what do you consider non-so-Catholic in Georgetown, or what is that you see in Georgetown that what is between eliteness and Catholicism in Georgetown?
Yeah, it's a great question. So there was a conference in the late 1960s, the Land O'Lakes Conference in the U.S., and many Catholic colleges after that conference, and the idea was academic freedom that they were after, but it ended up being kind of a major rupture between the work of a Catholic university, which had always been passing on the faith from one generation to the next, and being a center of open inquiry at the same time. And this is a battle that's raging at places like Notre Dame as well, where you've got part of the faculty that are very Catholic and they're very committed to the Catholic intellectual tradition, but you've got many faculty members now, and in some cases entire departments, that disagree with the Catholic Church on everything. And so if you're a parent and you're sending your kid there because you want a Catholic formation, but in your major, none of the professors agree with the Catholic Church, then they're not really getting the education that the parent and the student is signing up for. So I think this is going to be something that the Catholic Church continues to wrestle with in higher ed. But I do believe that there's a way you can have both free and open inquiry, where students are permitted to ask any question, and you can have faculty members that are committed to the Catholic intellectual tradition and the teaching of the Catholic Church.
Gentlemen, at the end of the row there.
It's a very interesting topic, and I think it goes back to the whole idea of like what role should the government play, or like state and society, and like secularism. And there's many ideas around like American secularism and like the founding fathers. What did they really intend America to be, a Christian country, or like John Locke and Rousseau? That's all deeper debates here. But I think what I really want to think is like what asking this question is like, why should we have theological, any sort of theological education in general education to begin with? If someone wants to, let's say, learn more about Christianity or Buddhism or Hinduism or whichever religion they want to, why is it necessary to have like a particular strain of theological understanding of the world and morality for the masses when people can seek it by themselves? Or why should we generalize a certain idea of certain religion or certain principles? And sure, it's one thing to say that, children should be taught classics, children should be taught Aristotle, Plato, and I think most people here wouldn't have any issues with that, or myself, I wouldn't have any issues with that. Well, why should we advocate for a Christian university or a Muslim university or a Buddhist university when that's something on the private realm?
It's such a great question. And I think part of the answer is what is in the question of what even is a university. Where does the idea of a university even come from, right? And at least in the West, I think there's no question with Oxford, Cambridge, the University of Paris, that you have at the heart of the founding of universities, Catholicism. I mean, they were kind of birthed out of medieval Christendom in so many ways. I think students, if they agree with Catholicism or not, if they're practicing or not, should understand that history. It's very interesting to me what happened when we went from having theology as the queen of the sciences to most students have never heard the word theology. And one of the things that happened is that the architecture changed dramatically, right? You go look at campus at Oxford, at Cambridge. I don't care if you're a believer or not or whatever, mind-blowingly beautiful, right? And you look at some of the universities in America where there's no place for theology and they're just kind of teaching a secular materialism, the buildings themselves become very ugly. I think that the purpose of education has been to draw students out of the present, draw them out of the here and now and into this conversation about what is true, what is timeless, what is good, what is beautiful, so they can have an elevated vision for society and for the future. I love that question.
I'm afraid we've come to the end of our session. But in the meantime, please put your hands together to give Jeremy a warm round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Awesome. Thank you.